As we've been discussing all week, the state budget included a big increase in what's known as foundation aid for school districts. But the New York State Association of School Business Officials is among the groups saying that high needs districts are still not getting enough money to keep up with changing student needs. And meanwhile, all districts are preparing to put their budgets up for a vote for the first time since the federal government put a cap on the state and local tax deduction, better known as SALT. Here to talk more about all things school finance is Michael Borges. He's the head of the Association of School Business Officials. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You're like the dollars and cents guy.
Kind of, yeah.
Well, no, entirely. So I do want to just say the governor's answer to this high needs districts problem was to put the onus on districts to report whether or not they were giving an adequate allocation to schools. Now, I discussed this with Tim Creamer of the School Boards Association. He's not thrilled,
right,
of course. But from your standpoint, though, you have to worry about, well, okay, the budgets and how this fits into a timeline of going to the voters and when we have to put allocations together. And it seems like that might be a bit of a crunch.
Yeah, logistically, I think this is really not doable, I think, in the time frame which we believe it has to be done by. I mean, the way we're reading it, this has to be done for this 2018-2019 school year. And according to the law, it says prior to that year, you have to submit your documentation by July 1st, which the beginning of the school year, which we don't know whether the school year means July 1st, or we actually mean September. I'm not sure. But in either case, we have to have our accounting systems, our financial management software updated, reconfigured to do all this building, budgeting that we normally do on a district-wide level. We have to get the forms and the format from SED, which is already understaffed as it is and can't do its job currently. Now they have to do and review, 674 school districts' budgets to make sure they're in compliance with this new mandate. So logistically, I just don't see how we're all going to get it done by.
Yeah, but the problem is if you don't get it done, then
Right.
you forego your aid increase. I mean,
Right.
you put your aid increase in jeopardy, I should say.
Yes.
So what you're looking for is some guidance from SED, which
Correct.
really needs guidance from the budget division,
Correct.
because this is a Cuomo administration
Yep.
initiative. It is not an SED initiative. And so you're looking for some clarity there. So you'll update us when you get clarity. I mean, let's just leave it there for now. We did talk a lot about that with Tim in terms of how it's going to work. Also, though, from a numbers and cents or dollars and cents standpoint, this whole thing about the foundation that you give your tax dollars to so you can write it off is. How does that work? Like, I pay my school taxes to a foundation, but I have to pay more than I would pay my taxes, and then I can write it off?
Yeah.
And then you get it somehow?
Yeah. We've been approached by a number of different legislators who are proposing legislation to deal with this particular issue, which is mostly concentrated downstate, Long Island, Westchester, New York City.
High property tax values, right?
Yes. And so, we had a lot of problems with doing this. And I know they're trying to address a problem that may happen next year, because we think the problem won't really manifest itself this year as opposed to next year when people start paying their federal taxes, underneath the new paradigm. But supposedly you can make a donation to your school district.
Instead of paying your taxes.
In lieu of paying your taxes, up to 95% of the credits, up to 95%.
Right, right.
So it can't be a quid pro quo, basically.
No.
So they allow school districts to create foundations. Well, I don't really know why we need to create foundations. School districts are already legally entitled to accept charitable donations and tax-deductible donations. But in any case, so you can make a donation to your school district by some deadline. The school district then recognizes your donation in writing and then somehow conveys that information to the tax assessor, because most school districts don't collect their own taxes.
Right.
So you have to let either the town or the county know before the tax bills go out.
This sounds like a real
Oh, it's another logistical
maze.
nightmare. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the IRS may just be like, nah, forget it.
Yeah, it may just kind of write the whole thing
Okay.
off. Yeah.
So there's that. This is the part that really is amazing to me. Thankfully, you've got this really handy-dandy sort of overview here.
Yeah.
And when I'm looking at all of it, the preponderance of what you have highlighted in terms of things that you were tracking and cared about didn't actually occur.
Yes.
And the thing that in the budget, in the final budget, which is not surprising because a lot of stuff got off the table because they were under the gun to get the deal, and we've talked about that. What didn't get done despite all the time we spent on talking about it, was anything to do with school safety. That's
Yeah.
unreal to me.
I was shocked that, given all the rhetoric, given the, what happened in Parkland in Florida and the outrage and nationwide by students, that something more substantive wasn't done in the state budget. We came out with a list of recommendations, removing the salary cap so we could hire retired police officers more readily, excluding security measures, expenditures from the tax cap, expediting the whole approval process for capital projects and the Smart Schools Bond Act. I don't even know if they even dealt with that simple issue. The one thing they did actually do was every year there's an annual approval process for continuing. There's a 10% bump in a building aid for security measures, and we asked that annual approval process be eliminated. And what they did do is they extended it until 2023. So yeah, one little minor thing got done out of the five.
Is that it? The Senate
Yeah,
Republicans passed a mega package of all this stuff, and they were talking about school resource officers and et cetera and so forth. And then what they did do, though, because they wanted to do that in lieu of gun control, but what they did do was pass a domestic violence gun control bill, basically, that was standalone outside the budget, which is sort of surprising.
Yep.
So I mean, what are you going to do in terms of hardening schools or making them safer? Are we dropping this issue altogether? Are we going to deal with it in the post-budget session?
Well, I think ideally is that SED needs to be, their staff needs to be ramped up. They need to be given the resources so they can process the projects.
SED is not an executive agency.
And
that
I
has
know,
always been the
but
problem.
we're putting children at risk. We're putting lives at risk because the pipeline for these projects, for these security enhancements, are held up by basically the inability of SED because of lack of staff to process the applications that are currently in the pipeline. I mean, it's a logistical, again, issue that can be readily solved with just some more aid to the education department to beef up their ability to do that.
Okay, the other thing that matters to people when it comes to dollars and cents in schools is STAR.
Right.
So the executive wanted to freeze STAR to the amount of the previous year beginning in 2018 and then requiring the Big Five, and other districts, at least 9, receiving half their revenue from state aid to report per building allocation of funds, et cetera, and so forth.
That's what Tim talked about, yeah.
Okay, so where are we with that?
Well, the legislature, the legislature rejected a number of things that we oppose and other educational groups oppose. One was, freezing STAR to last year's amount. They dropped the whole caps on expense-based aids. They dropped the proposal to eliminate prior year adjustments, which are claims that schools make to the state to get paid for.
And the executive went along with all of that.
Yeah, a lot of the things that was bad that was in the governor's budget got dropped, and we applaud the legislature for rejecting those other issues. Again, the bigger one was the whole reporting by building, by student.
So he got that.
Yeah, he got that.
Right.
Yeah. So there were some victories. There were some positive things. We were one of the few organizations that advocated for the whole farm to school initiative, increasing the meal reimbursement from the 6 cents to 25 cents for if a school district participates in this program where they buy 30% of their products for school meals. So that went through. That one school safety issue got it done. We also got some building aid amnesty for about 10 school districts that saved them around $14 million. So there were some small victories, I think. But again, they were significant for those who were impacted by it.
Okay, so, but still, in terms of cash, you're a little bit taking it on the chin.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
All right, and in the post-budget session, your main priority would be what then?
Well, I think the legislature needs to come back and really take a look at this whole reporting requirement thing about, the per building, the timeline, who does what. I think it's really an overreach by the governor. In terms of micromanaging what schools do.
Yeah.
And I also think that we're taking the eye off the ball. Again, the governor did this last year in the budget where he tried to disconnect the foundation aid from the phase-in amount. I think we're taking the eye off the fact that we really need to fully fund foundation aid. We're sort of putting the cart before the horse. We're talking about disparity among buildings. We're really talking about disparity among school districts. If we can't solve that problem, how can we solve a problem of disparity among school buildings?
Well, they'll come back, and maybe there'll be a Democratic majority in the Senate, and who knows? So we will see. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.